Good morning, children. Today we'll begin our third chapter, and this is two stories about flying. And the first one is his first flight, and the second one is the black airplane. And today, through this video, I'll explain you his first flight by Liam O'Flaherty. Liam O'Flaherty was an Irish novelist and short story writer too. He used to choose animals and birds as characters. So in this story, his first flight, his is a seabird here, and his seabird is a seagull. So do you know who seagulls are? Seagull is actually a medium to large size bird found near seas, and it is of grey or white with black marking on their heads and wings. It has webbed feet, and it is a carnivore who lives on crab and fish because they live near the sea, so obviously they will eat the crabs and fishes. And it loves to live in a family. So it is a story about a baby seagull, his experience of his first flight. You know, everybody on this earth has to catch up their food. The food doesn't travel to them, they have to travel to the food. So here it is very, very important for this baby seagull to travel to the food. So he has to learn how to fly. So this is the story about his experience, how he learned to fly. So let's read the story with me. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. So this young seagull is standing on the ledge. Ledge is a place which is a horizontal shelf protecting for a wall, but it is a cliff. So he is standing on a ledge all alone. Why he was alone? Because his two brothers and sister had already flown away the day before. So the story, which is about a young seagull who is standing all alone on the ledge, and he is at the stage of life where he has to learn to fly. You know why I told you why we have to learn to fly, why this young seagull has learned to fly, because he has to travel to the food. Now it's not the thing that his parents is every time going to feed him. So unlike his younger brother and sisters, he is too afraid to fly. They had already learned how to fly. They were not at all afraid, but he was afraid. So when all of them went for flying for the first time near the edge of the sea, all of them except him succeeded, and they are flying very nicely in the sky. And somehow when he had a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings, he became afraid. The great expanse of the sea stretched down beneath, and it was such a long way down, miles down. So brink is the extreme edge of the land, and before a steep slope or a body of water. So he ran towards the brink. He also tried the same way his brother and sister did, moved forward to the brink and flapped, but he could not trust his wings. He was terrified. He was terrified because he saw the vast sea and got convinced that he could never fly. His wings will not support him. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. So he was, as a result, he felt ashamed, he felt disheartened, he felt that he could not ever able to fly. He went inside the ledge and usually, where he usually sleeps. Even when each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings and flew away, he failed to muster up courage to take that plunge, which appeared to him so desperate. So the seagull is trying to say that he did the same way as his brother and sister did. Like, they went to the brink, they flapped their wing and managed to take their first flight. And he's trying to say that despite their wings being shorter than his, he's trying to say that he had a longer wings and still he couldn't fly, but they managed to fly. And because of this, even if he knew that he has longer wings, he could not summon his courage. Though he tried so desperately, he is so desperate to fly. He also wanted to fly and catch his food like his brother and sister, but he is not summoning up his courage to do that. He's so afraid at this point. So his father and mother had come around him, calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for life of him he could not move. So his mother and father had come around him, and he was scolded by them. He was threatened by them that they would, if he didn't try, they would let him starve on this ledge. So even after the scoldings and threatenings, he was so afraid, he couldn't budge from his place, he didn't move. For his life also he didn't move. Such a strange
That
thing.
was 24 hours ago.
Since then, nobody had come near him the day before, all day long. So it is like almost 24 hours he had been alone, for a day after he tried, because he had watched his parents flying about with his brother and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight, teaching them how to skim the waves and how to dive for fish, because his parents were busy focusing on his siblings. They helped his sibling master the art of flying and diving for food. So he is feeling alone, that nobody is coming to him, as his brother and sister had learned how to fly. Now their parents are perfecting them in the art of flying so that they could easily catch their food, fish here. So he is feeling very, very alone now. So he had in fact seen his older brother catch his first heron and devour it, standing on a rock while his parents circled around raising a proud cackle. And all the morning the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. So he's saying that he saw that his older sibling even caught his first fish, and which he is proudly eating, quickly eating, means devouring it at a rock which is opposite to it. And while his parents were celebrating it, how they are doing it, they are circling around him and also laughing loudly at him to show him that they are very, very proud of him, that he caught his first fish and he is eating it also. So, and they also, that morning they also taunted this little young seagull all the way for being a coward boy, not trying to get the food, not trying to fly. So they are taunting and threatening and upbraiding him. He's so alone. Now look at the situation of the seagull. He is so desperate to fly, but he doesn't have courage to fly. So let's see what happens next with him. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. He felt that the heat, because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. So the sun had now risen and he was feeling the heat more than ever. Why does he is feeling so? Because he was empty stomach since the night before. He hadn't eaten anything. So he stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge, and standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing. He closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. And now he has stepped out of his ledge, and he's standing on his one leg and pretending to sleep to gain the attention of his family, and thinking that somebody would have pity on him and gave him something to eat. But still they took no notice of him. He saw his two brothers and sisters lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was preening the feathers on his white beak. So he noticed that nobody is noticing him also. His siblings were sleeping, and the father was preening. Preening means cleaning his feathers with his beak. And why do the birds do this preening task? Because it is a bird's way of grooming, and this they do to keep the feathers in shape. So his father was preening it with his beak, and only his mother was looking at him. She was standing on a high little hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again, she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food, and that way scraping his beak now and again to wet it. So his mother was standing on another plateau which is higher than his where he was standing on the ledge, eating fish, and the fish was at his feet and she was scraping it. And while she was eating, she noticed at his son. She is like enjoying as she was enjoying the meal. So seagull got mad at this thing, and because he was very, very hungry and he is thinking of the way that he loved to tear away fish and scrape his beak now and then. So wetting means when you scrape something against, suppose like this picture, a man is scraping its knife against the wet stone to get it sharpened. So the birds do the same way. So because they want to tear apart their food, and they do it with the help of their wings. So they Ga ga ga, he cried, begging her to bring him some food. Ga kula, she screamed back derisively, but he kept calling plaintively, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. So, at this moment, this baby young seagull is crying in hunger to his mom to bring him some food. But his mother screamed back angrily. But, he didn't give up. He keep on crying, because every child on this earth knows that when you cry, it is almost sure that your mother would come. And that happened the same. And everybody noticed that his scream, a sorrow scream, turned into a joyful scream. What happened then? Because he saw his mother flying towards him with the piece of fish. He leaned eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within the reach of his beak. So, he got excited as she came nearer, and he thought his mother was coming to give him food, and thus he leaned forward to the food. And suddenly something very strange happened at that moment. She did not move further. She stopped not too far away from him, and she had the piece of fish in her beak, which is almost near to the beak of that baby young seagull. So he waited a moment in surprise. The baby seagull is wondering now, waiting that what is happening now at this moment, wondering why she didn't come nearer. And then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. So he was wondering that why his mother isn't coming nearer to him. And he's also thinking that is she going to fly away? And what if she flew away? So out of excitement and hunger, he had an excitement and fear also that what if she flew away? He dived at the fish, and at this moment he didn't realize for a moment that he was afraid to fly. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space, and then a monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. The next moment he felt his wings spread outwards, the wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards, and he was no longer afraid. He felt just a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Ga 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 ga. His mother swooped past him. Swoop means move rapidly downwards through the air towards him, her wings making a loud noise. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him screaming. He saw his two brothers and sister flying around him, curveting and banking and soaring and diving. So some monstrous, a horrible kind of fear. He got so excited and he fell. As soon as he tried, for a moment he was in shock and stood still out of terror, and this lasted only for a moment. And soon his feather opened and he flied. He could feel that the wind is moving against his breast, feathers and stomachs and his wings. He could feel himself cutting through the air. He was not afraid anymore. He was just a bit nervous first, as you see that, and then his mother accompanied him. And then the whole family, is screaming around him. His brother and sister was also flying around him and performing a series of jumps on the hind legs, and they are soaring high in the sky. Soaring means flying, means rising high in air. They are swooping. His mother was swooping, and this is happening now when he learned how to fly. He's so happy. He is trying to go higher and higher in the sky, and he is at this point is not at all afraid of flying. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly, and commended himself to dive and soar and curve, shrieking shrilly. Now, once when he came over his fear, he forgot that he was once afraid of it, and he did all those things he once feared. He dived into the sea, he soared up again high in the sky, and he took the curves, and he shrieked freely to show his excitement that I am doing what once at point of time I couldn't do it because I was so afraid doing that. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him with little ridges moving over it. So he, flied straight over to the sea, could see the greenery and the mountains beneath him. He flew over the ridges, which is little one, and he tried to move over them also. And he also turned his beak sideways to show his victory. He was so amazed that he could fly. Now he is going amusedly because of those things. And everybody does such kind of things when we also feel that we are not fear of doing something we feared of doing. So this happens with every human being also, everybody on earth. So his parents and his brothers and sister had landed on his green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings, but he was tired and weak with his hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. His feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no farther. He was floating onto it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scrapes of dogfish. He made his first flight. So when he, was trying to land, he knew that his parent and his brother had already learned this art of flying and landing on this green sea. But when he dropped his legs, he felt that he is sinking into it. So when he landed, after a while he was tired and weak and hunger. He could not rise. He was exhausted, and after of all these exercises, he all of a sudden felt that he's not sinking anymore. He is floating onto the sea. So when he landed, his family landed along with him as a gesture that they were very, very proud, and they were screaming and shouting in excitement now in their high-pitched voices. He then went into the sea, where at first he got, I told you, the scared and thus panicked. And thus when he calmed down, he started flowing, and the sea he was once afraid of. His family was around him, and they were all celebrating in excitement. And they also, this now after such much of, toilsome like of flying and landing, they offered him food as praise. So finally when he ate a full sum, he had overcome his fear, and that's how he made his first flight. And I hope that this chapter had left an impression that we should not fear, we should just try doing it. So thank you very much. Bye bye.